Essentially, it's an online platform for biomaterials R&D. Starting with, it was born out of a community wanting to bring together biomaterials developers from around the world and really create a new level of knowledge across the board. And our founding motto was to empower anyone, anywhere to create new materials or materials that are better for the planet. And really now what it's evolved into is that community, which is I think 12,000 plus bio developers across the world, coupled with an R&D platform. And then we're busy working on a software development at the moment. So yeah, a software tool that will then enable startups to accelerate their R&D process. Of course, everything's contextual, and we can't be making leaps to bio-based materials without understanding fully the impacts in different contexts. But really, Materiom is founded on also using nature as a guide. So one of the things we always reference is that nature's been creating vast quantities of materials for billions of years without any landfill or waste. And we can really look to them as our guide and our sort of chief architect in creating materials that are circular and moving from the likes of petrochemical plastics, which, as you know, are wreaking havoc across the earth and affecting our health, to something that is fundamentally healthy for both people and planet, and that can reintegrate back into natural cycles in a circular way. So that then leads us to bio-based. As I say, there will be instances where if you do an environmental impact assessment at the moment, there may be unintended consequences of shifting to bio-based, and that's why we take a really systemic lens with everything we do. So you need to be looking at the whole system from the beginning of the life cycle to the end, the circle, and really understanding where each of the impacts are and if you're having a net positive impact. At the moment, the community is largely biomaterial developers in research phase or in startup phase. So people are using it to look up new ingredients, look up new recipes, also to upload their own recipes and have them hosted somewhere, so as a kind of cataloging tool. So a lot of discovery at this point, materials discovery, and then also connecting with other biomaterials innovators. So obviously we've got our full community listed and where they're based, and so you can then have a look and see who's working on what where. So that's the community aspect. And then, as I mentioned, we are working with support from Google. We've just started working on an AI-driven software tool, which will hopefully help with both discovery, but also processing and optimization of new materials. And a lot of that is to do with information and data. So it's understanding what are the scientific impacts of certain things, also what are new ingredients that I could use, what are new processing methods that I could use, and how can I access data really quickly instead of sifting through reams and reams of scientific journals and papers, which I think no startup really has time for, given the intensity of a material development process. It's really important to be understanding what, if, for example, brands are wanting. There are a lot of, obviously, larger, big companies looking for certain things here, and then there are a lot of smaller startups, and there are people across the value chain. And that's one of Materiom's core goals as well, is that driving sort of cross-sector and cross-disciplinary collaboration. We also think that's actually the only way to make a change systemically. The booths are really useful. It's helpful to be able to see that where certain companies are, and particularly for us, a lot of the exhibitors are biomaterials producers or developers, so that's really useful to be able to come up and chat to them. And then I think just the way it's set up, it is quite useful, easy to bump into people and meet people, and the agenda's been really lovely and varied. So so far it's been really useful. It's very broad, so obviously our focus is materials, and that's one part of the bioeconomy as a whole. But it's really interesting and good for us to understand what's happening across the bioeconomy as a whole, so that we know what's happening with different feedstocks, so that we're really taking a systemic view.